Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, joined today by two absolute beauties. And before I get to them, a few things I want to mention before they get the stream started. For all my DFS players out there, we'll be covering a tiny bit of that, but I will also be doing a Twitter space at 6 p.m. with Tajik Bey and Brett Apley, as well as I posted my DFS breakdown on this exact channel, but wait to watch that because we have some absolute killer guests joining us today. We'll be covering the betting aspect here, and without further ado, let's introduce some of our guests. The first one, you all know, the man, the myth, the legend, Liam Picks Fights. Welcome back, my friend. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Gordo. It's always a pleasure to be here, my man. I think that we've got a pretty good card ahead of us. Haven't gone in depth on every fight on this card, but the ones that I did go in depth on, you know me, I went really in depth. I got a lot of notes. I got a lot of thoughts. So excited to break these ones down and hopefully find some winning spots.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you, and making a second appearance on the Plays and Fades channel. This time I got the time zones correct. We have Alex from the Combat Sports Central. How are we doing, my man?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing quite well, if I say so myself. I know we got a lot of Bellator action going on in the background, so I appreciate everybody tuning in, watching the show, because you know what? I think we got some good spots this weekend, like Liam mentioned. There's some money to be made, and I say we don't waste much time. Let's get into it. Like I said earlier, Alex and I cover a little bit of DraftKings, maybe Liam too. But if you guys want to know our full DraftKings breakdown, we covering that on Twitter and on my video posted on this channel too. So like I said, appreciate you two folks for coming on the show. Let's make some money, guys. Let's get her started. First fight of the night, absolute banger. Well, depends who you ask. I know Liam and I will have different sides of this one, but Victor Altamirano and Carlos Hernandez. Carlos Hernandez sitting at a record of 7-1. Victor at 10-1. This is a fight where we got two guys coming off the Dana White Contender Series. I know that Liam's not the most passionate about this one, so let's toss it over to Alex first. How do you see this one going down?
All right, so I was kind of torn on this one, liking both guys coming up from the Contender Series, as you said, right? But I ended up coming down to two different picks, right, after taking a look at the numbers and kind of checking them out, right? So both of them, only with one loss, kind of makes it, giving you a hard place to see where their weaknesses or where they're lacking at, right? So, obviously, me being of Mexican heritage, right? Whenever I look at Victor, I'm like, okay, he's got a reach advantage. He's super aggressive, but his takedown defense looks terrible, right? So one of the things I was looking at, I like the Hernandez Moneyline. I saw that on BetMGM as low as -105. So that was really appealing to me. So I was also seeing a lot of that of the fight going the distance, but I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to see Hernandez, maybe get a submission there, right? So either way, it's going to be a fun fight, but I think I'm going to have to go Hernandez Moneyline at 105 on that one.
Well, you must have got a great line on that one. I missed that one. I have Hernandez sitting at -115 and -125 respectively, a unit on each. I'm just going to say -125 just to make sure I have that right. But Hernandez is the side for me as well. Like you mentioned, takedown upside. I think he's got more volume, more pressure, and Altamirano is just so hittable, right? I don't think he should have won a Dana White Contender Series. I think it's a step up for him. Hernandez should be the guy this weekend. I think his volume, his pace, his pressure, and even those takedowns gets him a win. Unlike Alex, though, I am going to go by decision. Not going to play that, though. Just going to stick with the money line and play it safe. Liam, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just be super brief on this one because this is the matchup I looked into the least on the card. I think I mentioned on my program, I actually greased a win on both these guys, I believe, on Contender Series.
Nice.
Betting on them in fights where, the public didn't necessarily agree my guy should have got the nod, but we'll take it when we get it. Sometimes the bounce goes our way, sometimes it doesn't. But I think overall he's got a little bit of a little bit better of a body of work in terms of the Hernandez side. Altamirano, he doesn't come from as talented of a scene, I would argue. And on top of it, Valley Flow striking, those guys are really serious. Juliana Pena, I thought she showed some striking improvements coming out of that camp in the Nunes fight. I know it was a sloppy, ugly fight, but just over her past performances, I thought she looked better. Ignacio Bahamunde is another example. He's going to be fighting later on in this card, but he's another Valley Flow striking guy. And I do think that from a striking perspective, that's going to put you in a good position to succeed. I think it's a quality camp. So I see the angle on Hernandez, didn't play it myself, but if I do my due diligence and everything checks out, I might join you.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate the breakdown. And if you guys are listening, make sure you're following Alex because he got that line early. I'm sure that I would have loved to have that one, but let's move right along. Next fight up, we have one that I'm a bit more passionate about. Ramiz Brahimaj 9-4, Michael Gilmore 6-4. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you guys know my stance on Michael Gilmore. I can't bet on the guy, and I
We can hold it down for him for a second. Gordo, can you hear us, brother? Respond in private chat if you can, but if not, there he is.
I think it's a little bit of that snow action there. You know, he got excited about how bad Michael Gilmore is, right?
Yeah, seems that way.
Yeah, I think he was gonna go into saying how Gilmore is this terrible fighter, right? We were talking about that a little bit before we got started with the show, right? But what do you think overall? Takedown defense, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What do you think of that?
Man, so when I look at Gilmore, I think he's getting better over time, right? I don't think he's as bad as he was in some of his more recent fights, as he was in older footage. But with that being said, the guy's been finished 7 times in MMA between professionals, amateurs, exhibition on The Ultimate Fighter, and that's not good. Doesn't bode well. Gordo, you're back.
You're back.
Hey, well, I'll let you keep going. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Never a worry. So, yeah, I basically think that Gilmore, he has made some improvements. He's not the same fighter he was, but he can't make a ton of improvements. He is a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth, trains with Murcielago MMA, Chaos Williams, a couple of those guys in Detroit. So, solid enough team, but he is sort of the weaker link among those guys. He does have a win over Chaos on the amateur scene, but you've seen Chaos sort of take off some UFC wins. You've seen the other side. Gilmore's been struggling, been defeated, been finished now by a couple guys, few green guys, pretty low level. Gilbert Urbina comes to mind as well. Submitted him almost instantly on The Ultimate Fighter. So I think that Gilmore, he's getting better with some of his hand fighting technique and things like that, but he just doesn't really have a ton that's working for him. If he keeps this fight upright, it could get interesting. Ramiz is not a great striker, but I think that Ramiz is probably going to run this guy on the ground and do it fast. So I'm on Ramiz inside the distance in this fight.
Yeah, awesome. I couldn't be more with you on that one, right? So, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm having some technical difficulties. I'm lagging a bit behind. You go ahead.
So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think that Ramiz is not a good striker as well, right? So I agree with you there. But I think if you're looking at Gilmore, right, I think there's a huge hole. And if he makes that one mistake and he gets taken down, I think that's it, right? Normally, I love taking guys that are stepping in late, right? So, but, in this instance, versus Gilmore, I don't think it's going to play a factor at all. One of the lines that I really liked, Ramiz by submission, I have it at -120. Everyone's trying to get to lean inside the distance at -150, but no, I think by submission is the way to go, and especially at -120, right? So I'll take that all day.
Awesome. I'm on the same side here. I like your guys' breakdown. Again, apologies for technical difficulties, but we're back. And what I was trying to say was I hate Gilmore's ground game. I don't think he has one, and we've seen that in multiple occurrences. He's facing a guy in Brahimaj who is the polar opposite. He has a ground game. 9 wins by submission. 8 of them come in the first round. He has one thing he's good at and does it very, very well. If he stands on the feet for a long period of time, you know what happens? His ear falls off. No pun intended. It literally happens. I think that this path to victory for Brahimaj is insane. I think it's a massive value side. Maybe not at -150, but you have the most likely outcome. And earlier in the week when I stacked it, it was -115 for inside the distance. I had 2 units of Brahimaj -115 inside the distance. I think that's the play because I don't see this fight going past that first or second round because the gap in his skill set on the ground is just so humongous. All right. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not a fan of Gilmore's ground game. I don't think he has one. So for that reason, I'm all over Brahimaj, DraftKings, betting line, all over it. A little hedge, though. I do have a fight doesn't go to decision parlay just in case that maybe Brahimaj can't get him out there early. So it comes to some leg strikes in the later rounds. We all know how Brahimaj is good on the feet at later rounds, especially with that cardio dump. But all signs lead to a first-round submission by Ramiz Brahimaj.
So I got 2 guys that are my DFS building blocks. And I was looking at Rami, but at 9,300, second most expensive guy, I couldn't pull the trigger on that. But I'm with you. I do think he's gonna pull off one of those wins. But I'm worried there's gonna be a quick win. I'm worried it'll be one of those 70, 80 points DFS, with the victory wins, right? So, but we'll see. It's gonna be a great fight either way.
I'm calling first round submission. Let's say 5 points to the takedown, 2 strikes in the ground. I'm saying 105 points at the latest. All right, that's my play right there. Don't copy me, Liam. I know you're against me in the Iron Man. All right. Moving along, Next fight up, we have Alejandro Perez, 22-8-1 versus Jonathan Martinez, 14-4. Liam, let you kick this one off. How are you seeing this one going down?
Yeah, so didn't like what I saw from Perez at the weigh-ins today, to be frank. Looks a little bit like heavier than normal. He's actually the side that requested this weight be moved to 145 from a 135-pound scheduled bout. So a lot of people have been talking like it's Martinez's side that asked for this, but it's not. It was Perez. Martinez looked fantastic when he weighed in, I thought. Perez, was kind of like happy to be there, happy he made it, but, was moving a little bit gingerly. I couldn't get a good read on if he's physically prepared for this fight, but certainly looks like he's a bit physically diminished from his prime. And I don't like that in a fight with Jonathan Martinez, who I do think is fast, who I do think is pretty lethal on the counter. He can land good shots with his legs, with the knees, with the kicks. He could teep the body. He could kick the legs hard. And he could also, use those southpaw round attacks to the body and the head to really do a lot of damage. I don't know that Perez is going to have a good answer. I think he's going to be desperately grappling at portions of this fight. I do think Martinez is there to be clipped on the chin. Perez is probably not the guy to do it. Doesn't have a tremendous amount of power. And we're not seeing Martinez suck down to 135 in this fight. He's going to be at 145. I think that should benefit his durability and potentially the cardio as well. So I like that side. I don't think that we're going to see a great performance from Perez.
All right, no worries about the dog there. Tell him I say hi. I have some bark in the background because you know what? The dogs are barking this week. I'm on Perez. No, I'm just kidding. This is a spot where I'm not really interested in the fight as a whole. I think that there's some durability concerns on either side. I think that Martinez going up in this weight class, not having to cut weight, will benefit him. I do think he's a side here, but I'm not willing to lay that much on Jonathan Martinez. I'm not the biggest fan of his game as a whole, and for that reason, I'm passing on this fight. Alex, are you taking any sides here?
Yes. And I wish I had like a sound button where I could hit like a siren or like a trendy song or something, or like a TikTok dance or something, right? Because this is going to be one of my building blocks, right? What's that?
You can do a dance if you want.
Oh, no. I would hit a button and would have something come up or something. I can't do any of the dances myself, right? But I know Liam was trying to show us some dances earlier, right? He's got some stuff, but I can't do anything myself. But yeah, so several of the things I was looking at on this fight, right? So Jonathan comes in, already, besides the whole wake-up thing, he's already the bigger fighter, right? He has a reach advantage, leg advantage, already being the bigger guy. And I think there's classes to his striking game that he's far superior than Perez, right? So yeah, they both have a path to victory, but I think Perez is a lot tougher than Martinez. I think Martinez is going to be in line and catch him. And if you look at the lines and if you see the movement that was going on this week, right? So as of right now, if you look at Martinez, he's sitting at minus 275 on some books with an average of minus 225. So it's a heavy favorite on Vegas. But one of the ones that I liked, right? So fight does not go the distance, plus 110. I think that's super sexy. But here's an even sexier one. I know last week when we were talking about Dawkins by submission, we took that plus 300. You guys saw it here first, right? This is another one of these juicy ones where we're talking about Martinez by TKO plus 215, right? Depends on your books, but it's somewhere around there. So again, Martinez by TKO plus 215. And then also on DraftKings, Martinez at 8,800, probably one of your more pricier fighters, but I think it's a super sexy pick there. I think it should be one of your building blocks. I think you put Martinez in, you put another guy I'm going to talk about a little later, and you build around those guys, right? And then you get a formidable little GPP lineup, right? We don't play money here.
Hey, sounds good. I appreciate the breakdown there. It's one where I see your spots. Both guys have durability concerns. I see that finish. And honestly, the only spot I was looking at this fight was maybe the fight doesn't go at that plus money. I think it is a bit intriguing because both guys haven't finished. But I do agree. I think the finish more likely than not comes from Martinez' side, especially with that new weight class, not him being sucked in at all. So I don't know. I don't mind that one here. I hope it cashes for you, but this is a fight I do not want any action on. I am passing completely. All right, moving right along, we have Terence Mckinney making his return 11-3 versus Fier Zien, the smile killer, 12-3. Terence Mckinney coming off that 7-second NFT knockout. Shout out to UFC Strike. And he's coming in here. He's facing somebody else in Fier Zien, who's had a few fights in the UFC, not gone to other people's expectations. Maybe he grabbed the win he shouldn't have earlier. Who knows? but he's a fighter who I've struggled to get right a couple times in the past. So let's let Alex start this one off. How are you seeing this fight going down?
All right. So on this card, there's not a lot of super juicy stuff on this card, right? That being said, I think T-Money McKinney is definitely one of the most intriguing fighters on this fight, right? So I like this matchup. He's coming with all that hype train off that, one punch, or what is it, like a 1-2 knockout he had on Oh Boy. And I think that's where his specialty is, right? Those combos. I think he's got one punch power, but those combos are also super sexy. And you look at 2-1-1 in the UFC for ZM, and not a huge sample size, but I think you see several things there. So ZM's actually a little bit of the bigger fighter in this fight, but again, just breaking down the tape on both guys, I think McKinney's just a superior fighter all around. One of the lines that I really enjoyed was the McKinney TKO or KO plus 270, depending on your book, right? I think FanDuel had it at plus 270. So again, another one of those super juicy picks. So I'm definitely going to be on Terence McKinney as much as I can, right? And for DFS, this is another guy that I'm in. I think at 7,800, he's super underpriced, right? So again, another little building block here. You can build around it and select other guys there. But those two guys is what I'm on, right? Terence McKinney and then Martinez at 8,800. So McKinney at 7,800, I'll take him all day on DFS.
Sounds good. And I think that plays really well into what I was going to break into. This is a fighter in Terence McKinney who is killer to be killed, which is what you look for in those GPP players. Messaged Liam earlier in the week, and I think that this is exactly the type of fighter you want to have, because he goes out there. It's not the first time he got a 7-second knockout. He's done it in the past. He's got a ton of wins by that first round. Never been to decision. I think this guy has a lot of upside, especially on DraftKings. And I also think that fight doesn't go to decision is a good line. I'll talk about that later. First of all, Liam, how you see this fight going down?
Yeah, so I think from a DraftKings perspective, McKinney makes a lot of sense for all the reasons that you guys mentioned. But with that being said, I don't actually have a money line play on this fight. When it was first booked, I did have a bet on Fares Ziam. That was at a plus money tag. That was at an even money tag, I think. And now we're looking at Fares Ziam as a short favorite here, and I kind of think that's fair. I think that's where I would cap it. Fares Ziam has proven he could go 15 minutes in the UFC with difficult fighters, face some adversity, find his way to the 15-minute mark even despite that. So I kind of like that out of him. Terence McKinney, he's got a lot of substance early on in fights, but it's also a lot of flash. It's a lot of big energy. It's a lot of big actions. And I do think it kind of leaves him in a position where if he doesn't find the early finish, he might be bereft. He might get himself finished. Like you mentioned, kill or be killed. If you spend a lot of energy trying to finish early, you might find yourself on the receiving end. And that's kind of how I see this fight going down. I think Fares Ziam can take a shot and come back in this fight. However, I'm not going to lay the chalk in this spot on a relatively unproven guy who's also pretty young in his own right, who's also a little bit unproven on Fares Ziam's side. But I do think that, Fares has a little bit more of a complete 15-minute performance in him based on what I've seen so far. So that's what I'm going to bank on here in terms of my pick. But with that being said, the finishing potential is there for McKinney. He's a dangerous guy. McKinney's submission was a play that made sense to me. I didn't get on it, but I did see people that I respect hitting those numbers, and he does have a grappling upside in this fight, so I can see it.
Well, I maybe downplayed it a bit because I'm actually pretty big on this fight here. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I tweeted out this week, there's a line here that is off on the books. I looked across all the books and I saw that most of the time fight doesn't go decision. At the time of posting, it was minus 185. It is now around the minus 200 range. But you had a book in Betway who was hanging that fight doesn't go at evens. You had minus 120 there and minus 110 at one point. And I hit that. I hit it big because I think this is a spot, like I mentioned, a killer to be killed fighter. McKinney goes out there and he gives it his all in that first and second round. Sometimes when we go past that second round, he has a bit of defensive deficiencies, and for that reason, he can be killed as well. He has been finished in his losses. I think this is a fight where it's either going to be Terence McKinney early, implementing that grappling upside that he said he can beat Kazmat in a wrestling match. We're not going to go into that. He's one where he does have that wrestling upside. He does have that submission upside, but he's also got, like Alex mentioned, those combinations and that power on the feet. I think if he's able to maintain that throughout the fight, then my spot doesn't look as good because Ziam is able to withstand that and go 15 minutes. But in my eyes, you have a fight who's either going to end early by McKinney or Ziam's going to be able to outlast him and take advantage of that cardio dump. Moliver, the fight doesn't go, -120, the biggest play of the week, and I'm loving it. Listen to it here. That is my lock of the night for the week. So hopefully that happens. I just think there's a huge lapse in the market. I was able to capitalize. So let's hope it turns out good for me here this week. All right, moving right along. Josiane Nunes 8-1. Ramona Pascual 6-2. Pascual making her UFC debut. Don't be mistaken, it is not Amanda Nunes, but it is Josiane Nunes at 8-1, coming off that first round knockout of Bay Malecki. You got a 5-1 fighter fighting at 145. Liam, does that make any difference to you?
Man, this is a little bit tricky, right? Pascual hasn't really fought anybody of substance, so it's very hard to get a read on her MMA skills. But with that being said, she does look big. I thought she looked pretty big at the weigh-in today. So it's definitely got to be a factor. It's got to be something I consider here. But I also think it's a factor that she's coming in on short notice. I'm not sure what her level of preparation is like. I'd like to hear some interviews from her in order to get a better gauge on sort of how she got this opportunity. But it does seem to me like they're looking for anybody local that they could get to fight Josiane Nunes on short notice. And I do think that Nunes is a scary girl to fight. You know, she hits hard. Bay Malecki, I know she doesn't have good striking defense, but she had some of the right ideas. And Josiane Nunes just walked through the shots she was throwing back to land her own shots. And I do think she's willing to do that against most women. So it's going to take a grappling heavy performance, I think, from Pascual to win this fight. But yeah, I think Nunes is probably going to be able to touch her with harder shots on the feet and potentially find a finish. I'm not sure if Pascual is really at this level or not, but I also see that the over 1.5 is set, pretty low number on this fight. And I think it's based on those unknowns. What we know is that Josiane Nunes can come forward, swinging bombs and put a girl down. And really that fight could have been stopped several times where, her opponent was turning her back to her. So I do think that, if this girl isn't a real fighter, Josiane Nunes is going to walk her down and hit her with big shots and she's going to quit. But if she has a good grappling game, maybe she surprises everybody. So not rushing to invest at this price, but I do think Nunes should probably knock her out.
Well, that's not something I always want to hear. Like we heard on the Whisperers channel with the interview with Liam earlier this week, he does extensive research. It's never good for me to be on an opposite side as Liam. Speaking of Whisper, what's going on? Welcome to the chat, my friend. This is one where I may be on the Pascual side. No bet for me, but I think that size really does play dividends. I think she does have the path to victory if she wants to follow through on it. I think the wrestling upside's there. With that being said, I bet Bay Malecki against Nunes and she proves me wrong. So what do I know? This is a spot where I want to play Pascual, but I'm not going to. Like Liam mentioned, the over 1.5 is something that happens more often than not in women's MMA. And for that reason, that is the only play I have on this fight. Over 1.5, -130. I think Pascual is going to be able to survive that early onslaught. She has that wrestling upside. And even at that, we've never really seen Nunes extended that much. How's her cardio? Can she maintain that power throughout the end? We don't know. That reason, I'm on the dog here a bit. Hopefully it doesn't come back to haunt me. But I think the over 1.5 is also a good look. Alex, what about yourself?
So a little different take than what you said there, right? So, it's two interesting facts from Nunes that I love, right? Nunes hasn't lost a fight since 2013, right? That's number one. Number two, she's on a 7-fight win streak. So 6 of those being outside of the UFC, but still, plenty of footage for you to watch on her power. So I think that's the one thing that gives her the big advantage, right? So looking at her last UFC fight, she got the knockout 4 minutes and 54 seconds into the fight, right? And that's after doing some work on her opponent. So I think much of the same, Ramona making her UFC debut on a short notice. I don't think she's going to be ready for that. I think Nunes brings a little bit of different power to it. And that's kind of where I'm going with it. I love the Nunes by TKO at -115 on some books. Depends on what you got, right? But also within the distance at -110. So two very sexy picks there.
Fair play. Don't mind it at all. I think that is definitely a possible outcome, especially with Pascual coming on short notice. Mbe mentioned that Nunes might be too fast, and I see that, but I think the major power for Ramona is going to be that power. She's able to withstand it. This is obviously a huge step up in competition. Maybe I'm just being messed around by the optics because optically, Ramona, who is probably has the grappling upside, does look a lot bigger, and that should be able to play to her advantage. Maybe being fooled. It could always be a KO early and maybe lose some money both on DraftKings and on the betting side. But I am going to pick Pascal for maybe a little bit of an upset. Hopefully it goes over that 1.5. But I fully acknowledge the power, the speed, and like I said, a power seed strength of Nunes in this spot here. Look at that. We're flying through that. We're already halfway past this 11 fight slate. Next up, we have Ignacio Bahamunde, 12-4, Zhu Rong, 19-4. And this is where we talk about something that happened at the weigh-ins today. Zhu Rong, pink-haired Rong. Well, guess what was wrong? His weight. He did not look that good on the scales. He was 4 pounds overweight over the 156 limit. Had to be helped off. The fight is still going on with 40% of his purse going to Bahamunde. I originally have a massive X over this fight. I don't want to bet on it. I was leaning a bit to the dog here just because of that grappling upside, but I didn't get enough value for me to bet it. Maybe want to bet the other side Bahamunde now just because of how bad Zhu Rong looked, just completely fading that weight cut. But so far, that X is still there. No action from me. Alex, I'll pass it to you first. How do you see this one going down?
Okay, so us here at Combat Sports Central, right? We love guys that have those massive frames, right? And I think this is one of those fights. So you look at Ignacio, right, coming in at 6'3", 75-inch reach advantage versus 71 on the other side for his opponent, right? Leg reach, 42 inches, right? But, one of the lines that I saw early on the 5D sports books, right? And I was factoring everything in, but, if you look at Rong, his average fight time is almost 15 minutes, right? For Ignacio, you're looking at 12 and a half minutes, right? So when I saw this line, I thought it was a little bit swayed, so I managed to pick it up. And what we're taking there is the fight going over 1.5 rounds, right? Again, on the 5D sports book, and we got that at plus 255. So we know Bahamunde likes to be super aggressive. We know he's going to look to stay on his feet, right? So I was teeter-tottering on this one on potentially making it a DFS pick. But I stayed out of it just because I like the other two guys a lot better, right? But I do think that weight's going to be factoring in for Ron and everything. Overall, I see it being one-sided. I like Bahamunde, and I like the over 1.5 rounds altogether for a very sexy plus 255.
Plus 255 is a snag. I see it at minus 255.
Yeah, plus 255.
Wow. Well, you got a very good look there because wow, I have no words for that. You snagged that because it is sitting at over 1.5 is at minus 255. Must have been an error in the book, and hopefully take advantage of that. I for sure see this going over 1.5. So I hope that happens. But like I said, not a fight I have much interest in. Liam, how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I had a bet on the underdog here. Wasn't thrilled about the weight miss. Wasn't thrilled about how he looked on the scale. Obviously needed to be helped out, but ultimately it doesn't have a huge bearing on how I see the fight. If anything, it might be a slight advantage. Doesn't seem like he really, we've seen people come in looking worse than Zhu Rong and make the weight, if you know what I mean. Like he could have suffered a little more and tried to make it. Didn't do that. Comes in significantly over the limit here. Think that might play to his advantage if he's trying to push a wrestling and grappling game plan on Bahamunde's. Bahamunde's came in a little bit under the limit, so less than he needed to be. I think 54.5. I think that Zhu Rong's got to wrestle here more often than not. Make it a dirty fight. If it looks like a clean fight, he's going to have a hard time winning it. Bahamunde's is long. He's a little bit more clever. He throws a lot more volume, but he doesn't hit with a tremendous amount of power. And I think that Bahamunde is liable to be hit on the chin as well. Keeps his chin high in the air in exchanges, gets into a lot of exchanges based on the style of fighting. So Makhachev was able to exploit that. He's got a tiny frame. Zhu Rong, I think, might be able to exploit that as well. I hit him at the plus 190 tag, so I'll take it. I'm hoping that he has a good performance, but, definitely a little bit sketchy based on the weigh-ins.
Yeah, I was with you. And with that big plus money price tag, it's something that was really appealing on Wrong because we know that Bahamunde maybe still has some learning to do. Makhachev was able to tune him up the last time that Bahamunde was that big of a favorite. And it grabbed my attention. I was waiting for the weigh-ins, and good thing I did. I was waiting for the Bahamunde side for the weigh-ins because he's just such a big guy. Sometimes you have to just look for those weight cutting opportunities, but it was the other side, so it just steered me off of it. Big X for this one, passing on this one. I like your spot in the dog here, Alex. If anybody else is able to do like Alex was and get the over 1.5, that's such a big price tag, take that and run, because that should absolutely hit all day. I just hope for some violence here. I hope it's an entertaining fight. No really spot on this one either. I didn't really play it on DraftKings, so this is one where I'm just gonna sit back and watch. I got a lot of money and other stuff, so this is gonna be a nice little relaxing one. Maybe we'll grab some food in the middle. We'll see how this one goes. All right, we're gonna keep flying through this. I have no problem going through this real quickly. Next fight up, we have Gregory Rodriguez. We're on the main card. Gregory Rodriguez 11-3, Armand Petrosian 6-1. And before I say anything, I'm gonna let the man, the myth, the legend, Liam, talk this one through. How do you see this fight going down, Liam?
Man, this fight, I definitely did get distracted for half of a second looking over at that Bellator result. I think Jornel Lugo might be going to a split decision here, folks.
Lugo, eh?
Yeah. Pretty wild result given the betting odds. I don't know if you guys know about that, but which fight were you asking about, Gordo? I'm sorry, I got rightly distracted there for a second.
Well, please let me know how that fight ends up, because I do have a little bit of money on that one. But I think that this is one where we were talking about Rodriguez versus Petrosian.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, this is another fight that I do have a bet on, and I'm going to end up on the underdog side in this fight as well. I played Armand Petrosian here at plus 150. I also got involved in his inside the distance line here at plus 225. Lugo gets the job done. Oh, my God. He greased one there. That was a very close fight. I thought they were going to give it to the Irishman in Ireland and would not have blamed them if they did.
Looks like a unanimous decision, eh?
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not listening with audio. I literally just saw them raise his hand, but he looked like he was shitting his pants before they read the decision, and they were showing the other guy a lot.
29-28 and 29-28.
Okay, interesting. Twitter is definitely wrong on this one then. But, man, I think it certainly looked like a close fight when I peeked over. Armand Petrosian, I know he's not the kickboxer, right? I know he's not an Italian kickboxer. What I will say is this. He represents Russian Muay Thai, and he's very good at Muay Thai. He's knocked a bunch of guys out. He was finished in his loss where he got knocked out cold. And I don't mean knocked out cold as in put out cold. I mean knocked out when he was still cold. It was like 30 seconds into a fight. So even a bunch of the best guys, that is typically the way they lose. So I don't rate that too hard against him. You know, RoboCop got knocked out by Jordan Williams. So we can call that a wash and move on, right? And just try and evaluate their skills. Obviously, you look at Gregory Rodriguez, he has advantages in the clinch. He has advantages potentially if this fight gets to the ground and he can wrap up, whether it's a body triangle from the back, whether it's top position in the half guard, whether it's, locking up something from Turtle. The guy has a dangerous jiu-jitsu game. He's a credentialed martial artist. But I also think that Gregory Rodriguez doesn't have the best gas tank in the world. He's a very large guy for the weight division, and normally he can exploit that over people, where this fight he's not going to be able to because Armin is also a former 205er, and he's coming down to this weight at 185. He looks big. He looks physical. He looks strong. So I don't think he's going to get bullied around here in the clinch. I think he might get, thrown. I think he might get tossed at certain points. I think round one might be greasy looking for sure. But I also think that as the fight plays out, he's got ways to work his way into the fight. And I think that, if RoboCop doesn't come correct, he could get caught in the opening exchanges here because Armin tends to start his fights relatively sharp and ready to throw. So I think he's going to come out here throwing dangerous strikes, force RoboCop to decide whether he's going to bang or wrestle early. And, I think no matter what choice he makes, it's going to be a hard fight for him unless he gets that early sub. So early sub looks on RoboCop, I definitely understand those, but I'm going to be on the other side here. Give me the dog, Armand Petrosian.
Well, I heard Alex have a really big reaction when you said the cardio there. It looks like he agreed with you. Am I reading you right there, Alex?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I was saying, man, Liam really did his research on this guy, right? So that's one of the things I saw as well. And I think that's going to be a deciding factor. Him not having that gas tank and him tiring out, I think is going to play a huge factor. He is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, but, unless Armin gives him that hold, he makes a mistake where he can get him on the ground and stuff like that, then I think his game plan's got to be to go in there, tire him out, and then get the win in the second or third. So I like the dog on this one too. I was looking at some of the lines on some of the other prop bets for this fight, and I just couldn't jump in, right? So depending on your sports book, plus 165, plus 135 on Armin. So I think that's definitely the way to go. And, I agree with Liam. It's going to be a gas tank issue here, right? So I'm like an Arman plus 165.
Okay, well, all right. Let me give you a little bit of rebuttal here. I do think that Petrosian's a guy who's going to win this fight down the stretch. The cardio definitely is a big advantage for Petrosian here. The problem I have with him is I can't put money on Petrosian to win on the money line because he does get taken down, and the way he gets back up is he gives his back way too often. And I don't think you can give your back to someone like Rodriguez here. I think if you're holding a Petrosian card, you're not watching that first round because you'll be sweating it completely, because that's the only chance I'm really going to give Rodriguez is that first round, grounding him, trying to grab his back when he gets up. I have real concerns about Petrosian's get up game. I know it's good. I know he's able to get up a lot, but the way he's getting up against guys that we've seen in the past would not work here against Rodriguez. Rodriguez is a killer on the ground, and I think that's why a really good spot I played this weekend was Rodriguez submission at plus 400. I put half a unit on that. I think that is the major win condition for Rodriguez here. I think it's either Rodriguez early and Petrosian late. I'm not picking Rodriguez to win, really. I don't have any money on his money line, but I think that plus 400 for him to get that sub is a bit too wide because the way that he gets up, he gives his back, like I mentioned already. One other thing I'm going to say, too, is Petrosian, like you guys mentioned, builds as the fight goes on. He has a gas tank. He can go 15 minutes, and Rodriguez definitely can't. I also sprinkled some Petrosian round 3 plus 2,200. I think that line's a bit too wide as well. I think that Rodriguez is a guy who, like we said, has that cardio dump. And if he's wrestling at the start of the round to try to beat Petrosian, he's definitely going to gas out. And that finish is going to be there later. And finally, last but not least, I think you guys are getting where I'm going with this. The fight doesn't go to decision is also a good, let's say, parlay piece. I don't have it played yet, but I think that's if I'm looking for a parlay piece, it's going to be that one. Like I said, Rodriguez early, Petrosian late. If you want a good GPP play on DraftKings, I think Rodriguez's win condition is that first round. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. Liam, you got anything to add on that?
I was going to say, just to give you this tiny little bit of pushback, the last time that he did secure a submission in professional MMA was in March of 2018. So it's been about 4 years against Edilberto de Oliveira, some guy with 50 fights who is like a 65% career winning percentage or something. Not very good, just like a regional level journeyman. And he did have a couple of recent grappling bouts that went to decision with Joe Selecki, with Cody Steele. Those are guys that are very small. Yes, I mean, obviously they would fucking grapple circles around Petrosian, to be clear, but they're also very small guys. He was out grappling them, but positionally not finding finishes. I do think it's at least a cause for concern. You're going to want him to get that submission game going right away to find that look. So if you can find a round pairing, rounds 1 and 2 on Rodriguez sub, I think that might even be an optimal way to target it if you could find those prices.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the one thing, too, is I know you do your tape. Alex, one thing I was going to say earlier, too, is no one does his tape more than Liam on this. Check out DFS Whisper. He put on a great interview with him. I really enjoyed watching that. And I think I'll be going on his show next week to do the same thing Liam just did. Spoiler alert. But this is one, too, where if you watch your tape, which I know Liam did, that first round for Koliev, that he had Petrosian's back, it was scary. And I think Rodriguez would definitely be able to take advantage of that. Again, it's just something small you see. I think that the sub for Rodriguez is his main win equity, and for that reason, I don't want to be. I should be taking advantage of plus 400 if I'm doing my notes diligence. But I get what you're saying. I see it here, and for that reason, I'm also be playing some Petrosian as an underdog on DraftKings. Okay, love that. Let's move it right along. We have a few more fights, 4 more fights. Like we said, 11 fight card. We're flying through these, and this is the people's main event. Arman Tsarukyan, 17-2. Joel Alvarez, 19-2. Can we get a big round of applause for Alvarez making weight this time?
Hey.
Let's go. He needed the box of shame, but he got her done. I think this is going to be a very, very fun fight, one that a lot of people are looking forward to, and I definitely have some action on it. But you know who else has action on it, and we've been talking about this one all week, is Liam. Liam, let the people know how you're seeing this one going down.
Oh, yeah. So people's main event time. I think this is a good fight. I think both guys are quality lightweight contenders that have, potentially bright futures. And I think that's where I kind of dissent from some other people this week. A lot of people are under the impression that Joel Alvarez is not a good fighter, or conversely, that he's the greatest fighter on earth. And I do think that there's that nice little middle ground in between. I think Arman Tsarukyan, when I look into his game, he's obviously one of the best lightweight fighters on the planet. The guy gets after people. He's got skills in every position. When he gets on top, he's a hammer on top. The guy also can really put damage on people on the feet. You know, he knocked out Christos Giagos in pretty devastating fashion in his last bout. Also has done that to people on the regional scene, I might add. And he's also demonstrated that he could go 15 minutes in the UFC with tough guys, with good grapplers like Islam Makhachev, like Davi Ramos, like Matt Frivola. He went 15 minutes, fought at a hard pace, wrestled at a hard pace, grappled at a hard pace, and was able to keep himself safe, keep himself in the top position more often than not, and win all those fights except against Islam. And frankly, you know, watching Islam's tape, Islam is clearly one of, if not the best fighters on planet Earth. And you know, this is a guy who's competing with Islam. I think that speaks volumes. When you watch the Damir Ismagulov fight on the other side, Joel Alvarez got dog walked in that fight pretty badly. And he's made some improvements, I think. He's also had a lot softer matchmaking, I would argue, so far in the UFC. Joe Duffy retires right after the contest, like 32-year-old Irish boxer, never really could put it all together in MMA. I say that as somebody that loves the Irish Dragon, Joe Duffy, but it's just a reality. Alexander Yakovlev, his Russian win, it's like the least Russian guy you know, in the sense that, you know, Yakovlev, not a very competent grappler, been submitted a bunch of times by less competent grapplers. I think he was 3-6 overall in the UFC. So again, not a very high quality win. And then I think that the Thiago Moises fight was a stylistically favorable matchup in hindsight, but it's also, you know, right place, right time. Thiago Moises just lost to Islam Makhachev in devastating fashion. You know, his career confidence probably at an all-time low. Like, what am I ever going to do to be better than that guy? I've done jiu-jitsu my whole life. He just completely dogged me on the ground. What do I do? You know, then he goes in there and he's got to take on this guy who misses weight, shows up massive, looks huge in the cage, and walked him down with no regard. And ate some hard counters, by the way, but just like didn't care about them and kept coming forward and beat the shit out of him. There was no level change. There was no answer. There was no thought process from Thiago Moises. He just got overwhelmed. I don't see that happening to somebody like Sarukian. If you guys saw him, he was the picture of fitness and focus on the scales today. I thought he looked great. Joel Alvarez took 2 weigh-ins. He was able to make the weight class this time. Thought he had to suffer to do so, but he looked okay. Was able to make the weight, do a flex afterwards. So all credit and power to him. But I think that the reason he's got a 0% takedown defense rate in the UFC is that he stands quite upright in his stance. He likes to walk people down, you know, with his shoulders back and standing up so he can throw those low kicks as people exit range. And I think that it just puts him in a position where somebody can lower their level, head in the chest. And somebody like Arman, he's really not going to have to level change very much. He's going to be, you know, close to hip level, reach out and try and wrap this guy up and take him down. So I like Arman Sarukian to win this fight. I like him to win it in the late rounds or by decision. I think that he's going to probably do a number on this guy. And I think it's going to be a great fight. You know, I think Joel Alvarez will be back. I think he will get more wins at 155 or 170 that are credible. He's going to have a future in the UFC, but I think Arman Sarukian is right now, you know, a top 10 guy waiting to be discovered. And I think he's going to, you know, show out on Saturday night.
Love it. Appreciate the breakdown. Alex, you see it the same way?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit, right? Which is disappointing because Liam's been doing his research on all this stuff, right? So maybe he was watching some really old tape or something. I don't know, right? But that being said, I also can't side with a Russian fighter right now, right? We're not doing that, right? Team Ukraine all the way, right? So several things here. Number one, we mentioned earlier, we love taking guys that have that huge physical advantage, right? So we're talking about 6'2" to 5'7", right? So he's listed as 5'7" on the UFC.com website. On SureDogs, he's listed as 5'8". So depending on where you're at, but either way, that's a huge physical advantage, right? You're talking about 5-inch reach, right? Much of the same token, you look at Alvarez, he's got the 84% submission rate. His last fight against Moises, like I said, he overwhelmed the guy with strikes. So I think he's trying to vary his game a little bit, right? He's trying to improve on sides where he's not exactly his strongest at. So that's kind of where I'm at on this one, right? When you have that type of physical advantage on the guy, why would you go and try to clinch or grab or take down, right? I think you beat him up with you know, some kicks and hit him heavy, elbows and punches, try to get that TKO. So whenever I look at this, you know, I don't know if Alvarez is going to try to take him down or if he's just going to try to stand up as he did with Moises. So one of the things that I like on here is Alvarez Moneyline. I saw it as high as plus 180 in some places. So I think it's going to look hilarious on TV to see a 5'7" guy with another 6'2" guy, just trying to walk him down and do the same thing he did with Moises, right? I think he's going to try to carry on with that momentum and do that. So Alvarez plus 180 money line. I love it.
Fair. Two opposite sides. And I guess I'll play the deciding vote here. Before I do that, I see Mbe saying no one beat Moises like that. That's exactly a point I want to mention here. Alvarez just put on a show against Moises, and he was out there and he lived up. He was a plus 240 underdog, and he did a great job of winning that fight. But I think Liam mentioned the key factor here is it was like Moises was a bit defeated. He didn't shoot for a takedown. He didn't execute the game plan a lot of bettors thought he was going to. If we look at the physical advantages, yes, Alex, you're right. He is a big guy. He is able to win a lot of those aspects. But what you got to give Tarzukian credit for is not only his relentlessness, but it's his IQ and technicality. There's no one really in this division other than, let's say, the top guys. There's no one really at his level, really, in terms of the rankings, who was able to compete with him in terms of technicality, not only on the feet, but also on the takedowns. He has a really, really diverse and well-rounded game. And for that reason, I think, what would the line be if Alvarez didn't go out there and knock out Moises? I think that Tarzukian would be an even bigger favorite. However, playing devil's advocate here, you never really want to bet too much on against a guy like Alvarez, because he's a finisher. He's able to go out there. He's able to win those finish. I don't see him winning minutes here. I see him finishing if he's going to do anything here. And that's a point where I don't see Tarzukian making the mistakes and giving the opportunity to Alvarez to get a finish win. And that's why I don't want to really lay that, or not really lay, but play that money line at all, because that win criteria doesn't seem too available to me. I think what really happens is you have a guy in Alvarez who cut so much weight. We haven't seen him go past, really, other than that loss he had in the UFC, really go past that second round. We don't know how his cardio is. We don't know how he's able to survive that takedown on that onslaught by Tarzukian. And I don't really know what I'm going to see from him in those later rounds. I actually decided to play the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 138 here. I know the most likely outcome is probably an Arman decision here, but the way I see it is you have a guy in Alvarez who, without talking about Tarzukian, this guy's a killer. He's a finisher, and that's what he does. He's lanky, good submissions. We saw him have good power against Moises as well. But on the other side, you have a guy in Tarzukian who's relentless, who brings the takedowns, who brings the heat, and he's going to put a pace on a guy in Alvarez who cuts a lot of weight, who is able to maybe be a bit tired of later rounds. We haven't seen that retested. So I think this one is one where I'm going to look at the fight doesn't go. I've already played it at minus 138. I just think the line should be a bit wider, just because finisher versus guy pushes a pace. I think that this ends maybe in the later round for Tarzukian. I'll also be playing a little bit of Tarzukian in round 3 because that's my official prediction. But I don't mind the shot in the big plus money underdog, because you got to give the credit, the physical advantages, the skill. But this is one where I'm on Tarzukian all day. Yes, Liam.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what you said and also address what Mbe had asked. So do I think he'll have moments? Yeah, I think it's probably likely he'll have some moments in this fight. Tsarukyan doesn't always level change for his shots. Sometimes he likes to work a little bit on the outside. But what I think is different is that if he's stung, if he gets hit with any shot where he goes, oh, I don't like that, he is going to be wrestling and level changing instantly. And we never saw that from Thiago Moises. So I do think that if we see Alvarez start to have moments, we will see Tsarukyan try to bail himself out with takedowns. But also, to Gordo's point before, he has been an average of minus 300 on the money line so far in his UFC bouts, despite the fact that, he fought Islam Makhachev as a significant underdog there. So the odds makers have given him a tremendous amount of respect. I do think that they're also trying to give that respect back to Alvarez, who they've not given respect to, and he's cashed as an underdog a few times. So I think people want to get in on the underdog train here. I think it makes a lot of sense. I get the angle, and Alvarez is massive. I just think Arman Tsarukyan is one of the best fighters on the planet. So that's why I ended up coming down on that side.
I think what Emma pointed out too, if the Alvarez inside the distance, I think this is the one where if it goes to decision, it's a push. I think that's a great bet, because I think Alvarez isn't really going to win the minutes, in my opinion. I think the way he wins this fight is he gets a finish. Like I said, finisher. If you're holding and Alvarez taking it and it gets extended, you're a bit scared because you don't know how his cardio is going to be. Like I said, I'm on the Tarzukian side, so maybe that's a bit of bias there, but I'm just picking Tarzukian to win this one outright. All right, let's get her going. Only a few fights left, and this one's an interesting one. I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but I'll let you guys take this one over. Priscilla Cachoeira, 10-4. Ji Young Kim, 9-4-1. Before I pass it over to you guys, doing tape, seeing Cachoeira just gouge out Robertson's eyes, no fun. I'm not a fan of her here. Anyways, Alex, let you start this one off. How do you see this one going down?
So I gotta agree with you here. Not one of the fights where I'm super intrigued at, but some numbers that popped off at me, right? We got Priscilla throwing out almost four strikes landed per minute. However, she's eating 7 strikes per minute on her return, right? So, I kind of went a little bit back and forth, right? We know that they're going to both stand up. We know that they're going to punch it out. We know it's going to be super aggressive for both sides. But I think Kim has an advantage. I think both standing, and grappling, right? So, I went back and forth, and I'm not going to elaborate a huge amount, but I think, it's going to be a war. It'll be a late finish, maybe something like in the 3rd round and stuff. Kim being the favorite at 160, I didn't like, but again, I'm probably just staying away altogether on this fight. So any of the odds there, I'm probably not going to partake. I will say this: I think it would be a super sexy contrarian pick, for you to take either one of those, if you think that Priscilla's got enough to win in that 1st round. But other than that, no, I like Kim, but I'm staying away from this fight altogether.
And maybe I'm just a bit too objective on this one because I'm not a fan of Cachoeira at all. It's one where I'm going to pass this question over to Liam in the chat. Do you think that Priscilla inside the distance decision, no action is a good bet, Liam?
I think it could be, but it's a tricky one. And here's what I'll say, right? I think that Priscilla Cachoeira has an advantage on the feet here because she hits harder. And this is women's MMA where a lot of people don't have very much power. And I do think that Priscilla has power. And so she's going to come out here and try and use it. That being said, Kim, I think, is much more technical with her striking. I think her striking game, her whole game makes a lot more sense. She spent less time in grappling positions, but when she's been in grappling positions, she's fared much better than Cachoeira. So I'd have to think that the grappling upside, to the extent there is some in this fight, would favor Kim. Not sure that she's going to have the wrestling to make it a factor or the willingness and desire to make that a factor in this fight. But I think it'd be wise for her to try and do so. Cachoeira is pretty poor there. And her real upside is that she has a 0.5% knockdown rate in women's MMA. She has a 0.4% gets knockdown rate. So not great, not a huge differential in her advantage, but the difference is Kim has like a 0.2% knockdown rate or something like that. It's just very, very marginal power. That was against Nadia Kassem, I believe, that she recorded a knockdown, who I don't think has had another UFC fight since. So, just not a very high level fight here. One of the lower level fights on the card. I do lean towards Priscilla Cachoeira if I had to pick a value side from a betting angle. But that being said, all the stats do point to Kim, including the size metrics and things like that. I just feel like her game is, a little bit loosey-goosey. I kind of felt like she let the Molly McCann fight just slip through her fingers, could have won that fight. So I don't know, how committed she is in her fights to winning them. I do think that Priscilla Cachoeira is pretty doggone tough. So give me Priscilla Cachoeira here as an underdog with little confidence.
Fair. And like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this one because I haven't done the same due diligence in looking it up. I am going to pick the Kim side here, but no bet from me, no action, no really DraftKings ownership. One that maybe I'm not looking forward to as much, but I hope it's going to provide some good entertainment. Hopefully no eye gouging this time. I am going to give the advantage to Kim. I know a lot of people I respect are on her this week. This is just one I'm just not going to get involved. And with that, we're in our co-main event. 52 minutes in. Let's see if we get these two going. This is one where there's a little bit of drama on the scales today. Misha Cirkunov 15-7, Wellington Turman 17-5. And while I say drama is because maybe not looking the best for Cirkunov, but what I will say is he looked huge compared to Turman at the weigh-ins, at the face-offs. My bad. Liam, let you start this one off. Did that make a difference to you? Did that size play any advantage at all?
This is not a good fight. I don't love this fight. I don't care all that much about this fight. These are two guys that I've sort of put on like an island in my mind of guys I don't really value as betting commodities. Wellington Turman, I bet him against not Andrew Sanchez, against Bruno Silva, because I thought he could exploit the ground game of Bruno Silva. And he was making me look like a genius for a little bit on his back, every position that you could want if you draw it up. And he loses position and instantly dies. So I'm like, okay, he doesn't have a good chin. He's not reliable to get and keep good positions. I do think he's a panicky fighter. Like, I think he could just make mistakes because he's nervous. I think he's gotten a little bit more comfortable in the octagon lately, but it's a lot easier to be comfortable against Sam Alvey than almost anybody in the UFC because he doesn't do anything. I am left in this position, though, where a lot of people that I respect that are smart guys are on the Cirkunov side here. A lot of people are passing this fight, which makes a lot of sense here. My initial read was probably Turman or pass because he's the much younger guy. Cirkunov has been a disaster in recent fights. You know, I thought that losing to Jocko is like an indictment of the career of Misha Cirkunov. He's a much better fighter than him. Shouldn't have lost that fight. No excuses for it. I don't understand. Then you look at his other fights, and it's like, I knew I'd never bet the guy again when he lost to Ryan Spann. That's the most winnable fight for him at 205. The guy can't grapple. The guy has no chin. It's like, I can't understand how we dropped the ball in that one as well. So yeah, I'm never betting a Misha Cirkunov fight again. I don't think. I think Turman's probably going to beat him late. I think his cardio is going to hold up better. There's nothing good about Wellington Turman except for his cardio. So, like, he's just going to try and be there, keep fighting, throw strikes, be average, and make his way to the 15 minutes. And if he does that, he probably beats Cirkunov, who really has a limited way to win fights, which is submit somebody early, knock them out early, get some kind of meme-like finish in a flash, or just the fight starts to slip away from the guy. And, yeah, I know that Jocko's not a bad fighter, Mbe, but to be fair, like, if you're coming down from 205 to reset your career as a middleweight and you can't beat Krzysztof Jotko, you're not going to be a factor in the middleweight division, period.
All right, noted. Alex, how do you see this one going down?
So I guess first off, can you guys think of an uglier co-main event in recent history? Like,
I can.
Goodness,
I can.
Right? But as a side note, Liam's breakdown, you know, as they say on TikTok, Picasso, right? Beautiful. But you know, let me just add a little, you know, opposite side take to what he has on there, right? So I don't like either guy, right? I don't like this co-main event altogether. But you know, you look at Cirkunov, right? He's 2-6 in his last 8, 1-3 in his last 4, right? So he's not exactly has a momentum behind him. But then, you know, you look at the other side, you look at Turman, and you know, same thing, right? It's just 2-3 during his time in the UFC. Not huge advantages or anything physically. I think, you know, just how Liam said, right? It's going to be one of those fights where they're going to bore each other to death, and one of them's going to win because he's more bored than the other guy. So again, it's a fight that I'm just staying away from. However, if I had to jump on something because you're twisting my arm, then I think I'd go Cirkunov minus 120. But again, I personally myself staying away from it.
Well, I'm doing the unthinkable. I have a bet on this fight, and it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to keep it simple for you guys. Liam said it perfectly. Turman doesn't really do much well. He has decent cardio, but he doesn't have the power to put away Cirkunov like other people has, in my opinion. And Turman does have a good ground game, but I don't think it's better than Cirkunov's here. So what's going to win him this fight other than that cardio? Because it's not like his durability is that good either. So when I was looking at this fight, it was almost evens. 114 is what I grabbed on Cirkunov, mainly because I think his physicality is going to be too much. He's a lot bigger. I think he has some advantages on the ground if he gets there, and I think he has more finishing ability to win the fight. The problem I have with Cirkunov is his output scares me. His durability scares me. But at the same time, it's not like I'm too fond of Turman's durability either. It's a meme fight. I shouldn't be betting on this, if I'm being completely honest. This is a huge mistake. What I do see, though, is a path to victory in size, in the clinch, and just you have this guy who's much bigger, and it's at evens, and I don't know. I'm talking myself out of it. But no, let's stick to my guns. The research said that, yeah, ground game, I think Cirkunov has it. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think he's able to learn from his mistakes, even though he is older. I know I saw him a couple interviews where he wasn't happy with the way it turned out last time. And I think he's able to learn off of that. I don't think that Turman has the most knockout power to really put him out there or to scare him like other people has. I think he goes out there, uses his physicality, and wins a fight. I'm not even going to call around. I'm not going to call a method of victory. I just say he wins at minus 114. And please, guys, do not go crazy with that bet. But that is going to be my pick for this one. I hope he does do well. Maybe it's a fade on Turman, but I got to give the edge of physicality. And I'm just going to stop talking. Let's move on to the main event. One last fight to talk about. And this one's a fun one, at least, right, guys? This is better than the co-main. Islam Makhachev 21-1 facing Bobby Green 29-12-1. Bobby Green coming in on very, very, very short notice, being a gangster after absolutely annihilating Hasparas his last time out. What was that, 2 weeks ago? Bobby Green, absolute savage. We know how good he is on the feet. We know his box combinations. We know his output. We know his durability. But then you have Islam Makhachev. And what do you say about Islam Makhachev other than he's the closest thing to Khabib that we have, right? He's implemented the same game plan, and he went out there and he finished Dan Hooker in the first round. And I think that's a big reason to why he's a minus 1,200 favorite here, is because everyone expects him to finish Bobby Green. It's a tough one, Bobby Green. Short notice, really good opponent, but it's a win-win for him. Either he loses looking like a badass, stripping on short notice, or he's able to find that knockout. And the one thing I will give Bobby Green or anything is every round starts in the feet, and I am going to give the advantage to Bobby Green there. With that being said, I'm not picking Bobby Green to win. I do think Makhachev wins this fight, but I'm excited to hear your takes on this one. Alex, we'll start with you. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, so, again, whenever we talk about fighters taking fights on short notice, I think this is a perfect example of that, right? So Bobby Green being a hero and jumping in to save the main event for this card. Had he not, can you imagine what this card would have looked like? It would have been terrible, right? That being said, that's probably his biggest attribute in this fight, is his willingness to jump in there and, anybody can get it, right? So, it starts on the feet. That's where his boxing and speed, he could use some of that to start off with. But I think, Islam has the clearest path to victory. He's going to look for that takedown and then drown him, right? So not much to say on this. The numbers are terrible, like as far as trying to take anything. I think even Islam by submission was terrible. So it's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully Bobby Green can pull something out of a hat, but don't hold your breath. Still going to be a great fight to watch. So I'll be watching for sure, but I don't think I'm going to be putting anything on the fight.
Yeah, it's tough to bet anybody at that price tag. I think good way to cut it down is I talked to Liam. It sounds like a trap line, but Makhachev by sub or decision is minus 163. I think it's a good way of cutting down a minus 1,200 favorite. Don't know if I'm going to play it yet. It's definitely an option because it does sound like a trap because, like Liam mentioned, a positional TKO when people tire out could be an option. But Liam, how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, man, this is a fascinating fight, honestly. And if you guys have been following my content for a little while, you know that I'm a Bobby Green fan. I'm a Bobby Green, fan club president, something like that. I love Bobby Green, right? And I think that he's an underrated fighter. I do think that he is a slept-on talent at the 155-pound division. Kind of been lurking around in that 15 to 25, 15 to 30 space since he's been in the UFC. Getting good wins, getting quality wins, but really nothing on this level, right? And so when you look at Bobby Green and you ask yourself, what's the best wins Bobby Green has secured in his career? Early in his career, 2010, King of the Cage, he submitted Darren Cruikshank with a guillotine choke, right? Like the guy has been around doing the damn thing for a long time. Recently, knocked out Ally Aquinta, perennial ranked guy. I know that it wasn't really, Al's best performance. He retires right after the fight as well. But it was, this coming out party for Bobby Green, why people know who he is now, why he's getting the love, the plaudits, the credit that maybe he didn't always get, despite the fact that he's been neck and neck at times. He's had really competitive fights with the best guys. He just couldn't get over that hump. He couldn't separate himself or win those fights when he was offered them. So the Dustin Poirier opportunity comes to mind. Gets a big fight there, unable to come through, gets knocked out in the first round, comes back, couple tough decision losses after that. Again, against guys that are quality, right? Sound. They're not bad fighters, but they're also not really that elite of the division. They're not the top 5 guys in the world. And when they are, they're able to pull away even in the realm where Bobby Green is strong. So on the feet, he's an excellent fighter. He's been doing the damn thing on the feet for a long time. Bobby Green's skill set benefits from the fact that he can mix in wrestling and he could surprise guys that want to bring wrestling as like a B-level element to their game with the fact that he has wrestling in his back pocket. He could wrestle back into you. He could scramble. He can take top position. But then you watch Islam Makhachev, right? Like I mentioned earlier, and the guy is clearly one of the best fighters on the planet, right? You watch him on the feet. He moves seamlessly, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't move and waste a lot of energy. The guy has like a 2% opponent knockdown rate because he got knocked down by Adriano Martins like one time, a long time ago, and he doesn't get hit. So like his rate at which like one strike that landed on him has such a big impact on the data because the guy gets hit so infrequently. Okay, so he spends 60+% of his time grappling when he's in the fights. That's tough. Right? Bobby Green going to have a tough time winning a fight that 60% of it is grappling, much less with somebody like Islam Makhachev, who he's forced guys who are elite grapplers, scramblers, wrestlers into bad spots, into spots where they have to say, oh, you know what, I'm going to not do this anymore. And Sarukian, who I credited earlier in glowing terms, was able to elevate him, lift him, slam him, and control him for 0 seconds. Like, the guy just is not going to get counter wrestled in this fight, I don't believe. So then it comes down to, where does Bobby win? Where can Bobby win the fight? Can he win it on the feet? Yeah, I mean, he can win it on the feet. It's not a sure thing, though, I hate to say, because this guy Islam Makhachev, hard to hit, good at moving, mobile fighter, and when he picks his shots, he hits hard. And this is the other thing that, he doesn't spend much time at distance, so people don't see it. He fought Gleison Tibau, hit him with one clean punch, and Gleison Tibau was snoring. Like, bad. The guy can hit people and crack them. That was a 34-year-old. Right now we're dealing with a 35-year-old and Bobby King Green. This is why I look at this fight as a difficult matchup for Bobby. Bobby can show off against all-arounders. He could show off against guys that are going to give him the fight he wants on the feet. This is the kind of fight where I think Bobby is going to be tested in ways that we don't often get to see him tested, but also by the quality of competition that we don't normally get to see him tested against. And I think that part of that is for a reason. Bobby could get hurt in this fight. This is a guy who's dangerous, who's very focused, who can attack you from every position. And I don't see a lot of fat on his game. I don't see a lot of holes. He does a lot of smart things, right? He swings wide a little bit to get you into the clinch, wraps an overhook, and you're not getting back out of the clinch. Now you're in the clinch until he decides to let go. And I think that he's just going to be problems for Bobby all night. And I do expect Bobby's going to keep this fight competitive. When I looked at this fight, the thing that stood out to me the most from a betting perspective was the over 1.5 rounds. Bobby Green has gone over the betting total in 14 out of 17 UFC bouts. So that's a massive factor to consider. Islam Makhachev, it's actually closer to, I think 6 of his fights have gone over the 1.5 round mark, including on the other side of the ledger, the time he lost by knockout instantly to Adriano Martins. So I think that barring that outlier performance, 60+% of this guy's fights go over 1.5 rounds. We've seen Drew Dober, who's a much worse grappler than Bobby Green, go 3 rounds with Islam before getting finished in that 3rd round. By the end of the fight, Drew Dober's literally pulling guard, something you'll never see Bobby Green do, I don't believe, in this fight. So, man, I'm expecting a fight where Islam eventually runs away with it. He is the bigger guy physically. He is the stronger guy. He's the more young and fresh guy. He's got a lot of experience in his own right. Bobby's got double the pro experience, but Islam is 10-1 in the UFC. He's been a betting favorite in every single UFC fight for good reason. The guy is a savage. The guy is a killer. The guy has really legit skills, and nobody wants to fight him. That's the reason we haven't seen him fight the best guys in the world, in my opinion. If I were a top 10 lightweight, I wouldn't want to fight him either. He's probably going to go from this fight with an unranked fighter into the title shot because guys don't want to risk their ranking to fight Islam Makhachev.
Hey, well said. And I think that really encompasses why Bobby Green is such a gangster, taking this fight on short notice. He doesn't care. He just wants to go out there and fight. And I wish him all the best, but it's a really tough spot for him. And with that, we are done. The UFC Vegas 49 breakdown. My real thoughts on that last one real quick are just Makhachev should win here. It's tough. It's a tough fight for Green. The over 1.5 is a good look because Green is slippery. He's durable, but no action from me. Maybe taking that Makhachev by sub or decision as a nice little cutting down the fat of a minus 1,200 favorite. But I appreciate you guys for joining me on the show. It was a lot of fun, an hour and 7 minutes of us talking through all these fights. Before I let you guys go, I just want to get you guys to shout out where everyone can find you. And like we did last week, let us know what your favorite play is on the day. Like, who's your favorite fighter you like to win, both on a DraftKings side and on a betting side. Liam, we'll start with you. Where can they find you?
Awesome, man. So I appreciate the opportunity. I had a lot of fun today. Alex, it was great to meet you as well, my man. I want to thank everybody who's been watching in the chat. Salute you guys. Really excited for this fight card. If you guys are interested in my work, you can find me at Liam Picks Fights everywhere. That's on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I did put out a best bet and best prop of the week with Just Win Baby. That's something we've been doing, a couple weeks running now and really liking how it's turning out. Seems like there's been a lot of positive feedback. And we're going with Arman Sarukian on the money line this week. We're going with Ramiz Brahimaj to win inside the distance on the prop perspective this week. So far, we're 4-0 with those predictions. We're able to hit on Jared Cannonier, Kyler Phillips sub, as well as Dawkins inside the distance last week, and Gloria De Paula on the money line. So 4-0 so far on the Just Win Baby and Liam Picks fights. Best bet and prop of the week. Hope that you guys have success this week. Always gamble legally, responsibly, within your means. Appreciate all the support as always. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Alex, your turn. Where can they find you, and who are you liking this week?
Okay, so two of my strong ones, and granted, this week I didn't put out a column, but this week's been crazy. So, but also want to shout out Liam. Also great to meet you. Some awesome perspective on all the fights, right? So, T Money or McKinney by TKO, we spoke about that as high as plus 270 on some books, and then the Alvarez fight, right? So that was the Alvarez Moneyline plus 180. So those two that I love. The same thing for DFS. 8,800 for McKinney and 7,800 for Alvarez. I love those two as part of building blocks for GPP lineups. I think those two are extremely solid. I know last week I gave the over under on will Johnny Walker grind on the cut man getting into the octagon, right? And we hit on that one. So I think looking back at that was pretty cool. This week, I think we're looking at the over under. Will Islam challenge Charlie Olives for the title after he wins? I think that's going to be what we're looking at. So a little something to give you some interest in that main event. But other than that, you guys can find me at Comment Sports TNT on Twitter, but I have my own website too, thecommentsportscentral.com. Come check me out. We always have all the latest and greatest in MMA. And thank you all for having me. I appreciate you guys.
As always, both of their descriptions and their information are in the description. Both their Twitters and websites and YouTube channels, respectively, are in the description below, so check them out. And with that, we are completely done. Now's the time you can check out my DFS video. Now's the time you guys can get ready, take a snack, because in 45 minutes, I am back live talking about DFS and DFS only. So big shout out to my guests for joining me as always. I appreciate you guys coming on, breaking down the fights. I think it's going to be a really fun night, despite the lack of name value in a few. There's a lot of good fights I'm looking forward to, and a lot of money to be made, both on the DraftKings and betting side. So with that being said, appreciate you guys as always, and let's make some money, guys. Cheers.